out there. So as you get really close to having everything sanded nice and smooth and flat, you really start to feel the difference in how this rides on the flat sandpaper. You feel a lot more surface area touching in all the areas, so you know you're getting really close to having it nice and flat. That's really close, just a hair more. All right, we're gonna go with that. Looks good. So now that everything is sanded down, I'm getting ready to put the gasket on, the head gasket, and this is part number 203130, and so that's probably a replacement number, but that's the new head gasket that's going on. I'm going to use a little bit of RTV sealant on the gasket as well, just a little bit on both sides. That'll help kind of stick it in place and keep it centered over the holes where I need it. Alright, just got the head on there, snugged up a little bit. Now we're going to start torquing it down. And then what I've learned is that, you don't torque them all down right away. You just kind of start tightening them all a little bit, the same all at the same time. You're going to just apply the even amount of pressure all the way around as we snug this up. Kind of get a feel for that. Alright, next we're going to work on this exhaust cover plate right here. So we'll get a gasket on there, get a little bit of sealant on there, and get this cap on here. The part number for this gasket is 203171. And again, this is a JW17 motor that we're working on. This hole here stays empty because that's where we attach the air box when we put that back on. So the screw with that one goes back in there. Alright, before we put our magneto and flywheel back on, we're going to go ahead and get this bracket on because this will not fit over, if you remember, once you have that flywheel back on. So you got to get this on now. So we're going to use these two screws here. They have a little bit of a star washer underneath them. And then a couple of the bolts for down on the side where they bolt down. So the screws on the top, bolts down on the side. Alright, let's get the flywheel back on now. Now these screws that we're putting down, we're going to just, keep them a little bit loose so we've got a little bit of play for shifting this around to get all three of those screws in there. Okay, time to put the coils back on. to take the loose end of the spark plug wire, work it back into the core till it's seated nice and tight, and then work that slack out and set that coil in place where it needs to go. So this bolt right here has the little washer. So when I put this black wire down, I'm going to put the screw through the top and then the washer underneath so that it'll be between the contact plate here and that fitting. And you've got another screw that goes back on this side. It only has the little star washer. And you have a long Phillips head screw that goes down here. This is a longer screw. It threads part way, then you'll feel it give way. It'll slide down through there a little bit more, and then you'll finish threading it out near the bottom. Now before you get these snugged up too much, you want to check your little gap here along the edge. So right here on the edge of this brown color, you want that flush with this little piece of white metal or aluminum right there. So just kind of get something there to make sure that it's flush before you tighten that down. Work the other side, make sure it's flush before you tighten it down. So those little gauges there ensure that you've got your coil set at the right gap with the flywheel. So it's not the same as your gaps on your points. It's just between the magnets of the magneto as it passes by this coil. Alright, we'll get this one on and then just connect a couple wires here, and then we'll be ready to get the flywheel back on, and then we'll crank her up and check for spark. Alright, let's check the gap on the points. We're looking for just a bit of friction with at 20 thou. And that's a little bit tight, so I'm going to adjust that. Loosen up the main screw and then adjust the little screw that adjusts the spacing. So just kind of run the feeler gauge back and forth a little bit till you start feeling just a little bit of friction. Alright, a little bit of friction there. Now we'll turn it to the other side. Check that one. That's good. That's gapped just right. We hope. Alright, let's get the flywheel on next. I'm going to have to pop this nut off, and then I'll get that flywheel on. So we're looking for the notch for the keyway, which is, the keyway is over here, so I want to make sure I drop it on there, lined up with the keyway. Okay. And I've got a little tapping block here just to help seat that flywheel a little bit better. And we'll put our nut back on. Okay, got those on. I'm just going to tie up some loose ends with the cable wires here, a couple of clips here that'll help hold these steady. So I did a compression test on this, and now at least I'm getting some readings in both cylinders about the same. They're both about 60 pounds, and I know that's really low, But considering that this thing ran on one cylinder that was at 60 pounds and the other one was at 0, maybe it'll run okay for what we need it to. Obviously, probably not going to get it up perfect, anywhere around 90 or 100 pounds pressure on the cylinder. So I'll take 60 on them if it'll work and give us a little bit more range in the low end. So anyway, that's to be seen tomorrow. So now that we've got this all together, we're going to go ahead and fire this puppy up. Now, there's a few things that you may notice compared to when compared to the video where you saw me start it up after that first bit of a rebuild. You're going to notice a huge difference in what the engine sounds like. What a difference when it runs on both cylinders instead of just one. The other couple of things that you'll notice are being able to idle at the low idle speed. So being able to go beyond the start position. Before I was not able to go to the left of that start position on the handle at all. So now I'm going to be able to get all the way over to that slow position. And then on the high speed, I'm only going to be able to run it just a little bit for the video because it will literally blow most of the water down below the water intake out of this. I think it's running about twice as fast as it would have without rebuilding, putting the new gasket on the head. So let's take a look.